It's a classic computing interview session.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. And today we have something very interesting, and we're here with Nick McMillen. So Nick recently published, I'm going to call it a blog post, where he introduced his Apple Franken-Lisa project, and you can kind of see there behind him, you can see it. So Nick decided to 3D print, and we're going to ask him questions. He's going to tell more about it, but he decided to make his own Lisa, which is cool, very, very cool. So Nick, let's start off. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Nick McMillen. You got the last name right. I live in Kansas City. I'm 33 years old. I wear a handful of hats. The one that's relevant here is I own a co-working space down here, and that'll come up later. But the more interesting hat I wear is I just launched a project called Rhyme.com. It's a social media platform. I didn't come on here to pitch it, but I'll take advantage of my audience here. It's just a topic-focused social media platform, and it solves a lot of the problems that other social media platforms have. And that's where I posted my Franken-Lisa blog post, as you said. So that's kind of the super short and sweet about me.
Ask you about that because I just sort of took it for granted. It's just some blogging platform, that you use. Oh, it looks pretty good. Yeah, I didn't really think much about it, but yeah, it looks really nice. It's very professional. So I'll have to look more into that.
Thank you.
So in your blog post, well, your article, let's call it, but in it you talk about that you're into vintage computers, and of course, especially vintage Apple stuff. So can you just elaborate a little bit more on that, like when you got started with that, and maybe why, and things like that?
Yeah, and this is just going to be word salad answer because I don't have any one like. So my first memory of a computer, I couldn't tell you what it was. It had two, like 5 and a whatever inch floppy bays. That was my first memory of having a computer, and my grandparents' house, we had the same thing as well. So I have this just like, this nostalgia around just kind of old timey things and simpler things or whatever. And that might be the real reason why is I don't know if you can tell from around me, but you're just getting the tiniest window of the chaos that is my world. And it's all my own, it's self-imposed, it's my fault. But I'm just, we're just constantly, I don't know, inundated with information all the time, whether it's, TikTok, social media, whatever. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. But there's something really appealing to me about, like vintage computing, and also very similarly vinyl records that just kind of force you to, okay, if you want to engage with this, you have to slow down. You have to stop. You have to slow down. You don't have all the creature comforts that come with all these things. With the vinyl records, you can't skip. I mean, you can, but very crudely. And the same with these computers. You can't just ignore all the instructions and bypass the manuals. You really have to sit down and breathe and think and study and ask questions. And I think the other thing that's interesting to me about it is there's a real community feeling to being involved in a hobby like vintage computing. You know this. Everyone who's listening to this knows this. Anyone who's into vintage computers wants to talk about vintage computers, and they're very happy to share their knowledge and their experience, and they will get excited about what you're excited about. And it can be really insignificant things. You can come across a $20 floppy drive for an old Tandy or something, and you can show it to somebody and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, cool!" And it's like, this is $20 on eBay, like it's somebody's trash. But so that's I think what I like about it. It just forces me to kind of slow down. And I just recently read, I think it's called Fire in the Valley.
Oh, good book, great book.
It's awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm a big Apple fanboy, but within reason. And it was cool to like break out of what every vintage computing book is. They kind of follow Apple and Microsoft, and the just little orbit around them. And the Fire in the Valley, really, they're just tiny. Both Apple and Microsoft are just tiny specks in that book. I think it was really cool just to hear all these names and see, just kind of how it all started. So I think vintage computing is cool because it helps you contextualize everything. You look at your computer today and you can see, oh, wow, this is how this started. And if I have the opportunity, I have thoughts specific to the Lisa's operating system that like are in that little ecosystem. But that's part of what interests me about it, at least.
Okay. Well, I've argued that yes, there were some other computers before the Lisa, other concepts, things that, the Lisa didn't just spring out of nothing. But for all practical purposes, the Lisa is like the grandmother of everything we use today. Whether you use
Oh, yeah.
Windows, the Mac, Android, or iOS, iPad OS, I think there's a good case to be made for that. That all sprang from that fountain. Also, in the last picture in your article with the I guess you're always calling it the Franken-Lisa.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I had noticed the record player behind it, the sort of what do we call that? The standard can be high end stereo cabinet, with your turntable on top. So I had noticed that.
Yeah, I get a
That's
kick
cool.
out of it all. I like, I have one weird special interest which is not worth talking about here, but Kirby vacuums. Don't ask me why. Couldn't tell you why. I can't get enough of them. I own about 10 of them. They're fun for a number of reasons. One, it's just because they're built like tanks. You turn them on, they're meant to last forever, whatever. But I get a kick out of you see them on Facebook Marketplace for $20, and
Yeah,
almost more often than not, you get the box of accessories with them, and in there you'll find like the receipt and it's somebody
extra
hand
bags,
signed
right? And
yeah, but
things
though
like
you'll
that.
get a 12-month lease to own thing, and that vacuum costs somebody
Yeah,
$3,000 from a door-to-door salesman. I just really get a kick out of that old stuff that was like really thoughtful, and the saying is they don't make it like they used to, and that's really true. And so it's fun to go cling on to these whatever it might be computers or hi-fi stereos or whatever that are like, oh, these are built to last.
so I try not to indulge too much in like, making it about me because I'm here to talk to you, interview you. But as I'm trying to build up a YouTube channel and I have other interests too. And vintage computing's been my thing for a long time, over 30
Yeah.
years. But I've collect other things and like I'm gonna sort of blur my camera here a little bit. But here in my office, I'm trying to get it straightened out so it looks better. But I collect toy ovens. And
Yeah.
so my name's David, and I collect toy ovens.
Is there a community for that?
I don't, a small one maybe, but and so just real quick, the why is because I don't know, when I was a little boy in the 70s and I encountered one, a little girl had one, I guess, or my cousin, somebody, and I'm like, my attitude is, who doesn't want to make their own cookies and cake? I mean, but there was a girl's toy. Back I can't have one. It's for girls.
Yeah,
Anyway, I had
sure.
my first child was a daughter, and she's also about to turn 33 years old.
Yeah. Huh.
So I don't know if you can see it. It's back here in a box, but her original one, I saved it after she grew out of it. I played it with her, helped her. I helped
Yeah.
her with it. I played with it.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I thought I was about to give it away, and I go, I maybe I'll hang on to this. And I just thought maybe this would be another interesting hobby. Who collects this sort of thing? So I started collecting them, and I even came to find out, if you can look right here, this is a 1940s toy oven. So they existed before Easy Bakes.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's for all practical purposes, it's a real oven, just miniature. There's a 1950s one up here, and then variations of Easy Bake. But I collect like some Star Trek stuff, and I like the Haunted Mansion, just things like that. So I think passion is a really important part of life, and
Yeah.
passion for people, but passion even for concepts and things. We shouldn't value things too much, but it's good, right?
No,
It
I,
makes your
I
life
love it.
thrive.
It's so fun. It's fun because everybody has something like that, and you'd never know by looking at them or talking to them. Everybody has these little like passion interests, and
Yeah,
we should be more vocal about discussing them and sharing them and dragging people into our interests. And I get a kick
right,
out of it.
right. And I say this a lot to people, but I enjoy watching the Antiques Roadshow. And I always
Yeah.
use sort of the example of, if you like the Antiques Roadshow, but they come to this person and then they're sitting there with an object, and here's the expert. And you as a if you're a casual watcher, you might be looking at it and go, okay, I mean, that's kind of interesting, or that's nice, or whatever. You might care more or less, but it's not until the expert starts speaking to it and asking them questions and making it sort of come to life, and you start learning more about its history and how's it, now it becomes way more interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, always answer like, why should you care? Sort
Right.
of questions. So, all right,
I
back
was.
to the interview. So,
Yeah.
okay, so now it's a fairly long article, lots of information here. Some of the hardships you went through, especially about the case, was the big part of it, reproducing the case. But also
Mhm.
you have a Raspberry Pi in there. Oh, let me
Right.
show you something and to our audience. So basically, this was from option 8.
Yeah.
So basically, you took this case
That's it.
and then
Yeah.
you upscaled it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
literally
so
that's
I got
that
this, I
is it.
think 13 years ago, 14 years ago. So Raspberry Pi 2, the same Lisa M emulator in there. Um,
Yeah.
and I also have, so I have two of them. I have the Lisa 2. Because I'm the Lisa guy, I gotta have both.
That is so funny.
So in creating your reproduction, Lisa, you mentioned that you took that case and you
Yeah.
blew it up 4 times the original size. So is your version? Do you know how, like, what percentage of the real thing it is? Do you have any idea of that? Bigger,
I
smaller?
Yeah, my understanding is that that version you're holding, and then obviously this version is yours is a perfect 1/4 scale. So mine should theoretically be a perfect 1-to-1 scale.
It seems like, I mean, 1/4 scale. It almost seems like it'd be that, right? It's the real one's much bigger than that. Or am I, or it's compounded, or is that the right word?
I'm realizing on the spot. And okay, so actually, it's
Oh,
possible.
no,
Let me
no,
see.
1/4 scale. I'm sorry. I'm thinking, yeah. So if like you put four of these next to each other, that should be the approximate width. But anyway,
It may be, yeah,
you have to
yeah.
measure it and send it to me, and I'll measure my
If
real
you
one.
blew, we should, yeah, I will, because if you blew yours up double, it'd be about this big, and if you blew that up double, it'd be about
Yeah.
it. And I get confused because I want to do everything all the time. So if you'll notice back here, that is a Macintosh 3D printed, another project I'm
Oh,
working on.
cool.
And one of those projects, I believe, is 1/4 scale, and one of them is maybe 1/5 scale. That was the same situation where it was a small 3D printed model. But I think 1/4. I'm pretty sure 1/4, and I'm pretty sure blown up it is. It's obviously not 1-to-1 because you can see just like on yours, this was modified to accommodate. I think the bottom drive was meant to be an SD card, and so it's much
Yeah,
fatter
exactly.
on.
Yeah.
Yes, so there's a few remnants like that that are not present
So do you
in
see
the
right here?
actual. Yes, exactly.
Do you see?
But perfect. Yeah, the micro SD. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so clever.
Yeah, I always thought so too.
I wish I had
Yeah.
mine. I 3D printed the same thing quite a while ago, and it's sitting on my kitchen counter of all places, my little tiny one.
Yeah, so here's a real Lisa 2
Okay,
front panel. And the Lisa one's the same size, other than the
sure.
cutouts are different or whatever. But I have one of on mine, I have the clear one that Mac Effects made. And it's kind of
Yeah,
a
yeah,
hybrid where it looks like a Lisa 1 with the little faceplate,
yeah.
but then it's a Lisa 2, for so that's why
Yes.
this one is one where I was doing my interviews. I got some signatures. Oh, I have it
Huh.
blurred some.
Oh, that's so fun. That is cool. How many Lisas do you own?
One.
One Lisa. Nice.
Yeah. And I got it. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, my hometown. I lived in Atlanta for a while. I've had a few over the years, but the last one I had, it had problems, and I'm not to the level of that technical to troubleshoot it. So I ended up selling it, and then I moved back here, and I made a documentary. I'm like, I really. It's a shame I made the Lisa documentary. I don't own a Lisa, and then I started
Oh,
looking for them, and one came up on Facebook Marketplace here in Jacksonville, but it
yeah,
had battery bombing and it needed a lot of work.
sure.
So I've got it working. I don't mean to go on too much with this, but a friend I've made, he lives in Tallahassee, he's a little over 2 hours away, and
Yep.
he's actually on the side, he's a vintage tech, computer tech, very, very skilled. And so
Ah,
he worked on it for me and fixed a lot of stuff. So currently, though, it has to be displayed externally. Internally, there's a problem with that. What do you call that? The audio analog, not the analog board. Analog board, yeah, I think it's what's called. Like it's like a power supply for the screen.
sure.
But I had to replace the power supply, the main one,
Hmm.
the motherboard, and the I/O board had to get modern replacements.
Interesting.
So
Which is it's a bummer, but it's nice. The more of those things that you
that
can
you,
replace and modernize, the more comfortable you are booting that thing up and tinkering with it. I every time I turn on my original 128K, I'm just nervous. Like, is this the time that something's going to pop, and then I'm going to be without it for a couple weeks? And so the
yeah,
more you
and
can modernize it.
I guess I'll add this because I was going to show you another thing is so I have a working SE and I used to have two working Mac Pluses and one of them
Yeah,
I had for a long time and I had it checked out and my friend David, the tech, he checked them all out. Everything was great. He
yep,
replaced some caps and other stuff. And then like within a year, they both stopped working. And then he
yeah.
troubleshoot them and it was, I don't remember exactly, it was too expensive and he couldn't get the right part, whatever. So So I don't have them anymore. I don't have, but
Oh,
I just got this recently from Joe's Computer Museum. It's called the CatMac Mini, and you can get
okay.
it for a Plus, a 512, 128, an SE, I think a Classic. But this is 3D printed, so it kind of looks like a Mac 2.
Yeah.
But then you can put your, in this case, a Mac Plus. I have a working Mac Plus motherboard, logic board, so I can put it in here and make it into like a headless Mac Plus.
Huh.
So
How
yeah, isn't that cool?
interesting. That is very cool. Where do you get that?
So yeah, so I just got this recently, so I got to put my logic board in there. And but anyway, so yeah, I don't
Nice.
know how to 3D print anything either. So
Sure. And who sells that?
at Joe's Computer Museum,
Okay.
and
Interesting. Very cool.
he also, I think you can get the plans for this and 3D print it yourself, which apparently you can do that. Oh yeah, you definitely
Yeah.
can do that. But or you can buy it from him. He prints it. So that's what I did.
Aha. Very cool. Worth it's sometimes it's worth it just to have it come perfect, ready out of the box, the correct color, the correct everything.
Yeah, I
It's
mean, well, and I don't have any experience. I have never owned a 3D printer. I have no experience with it, and so.
yeah.
Uh, so here's another question. Since you completed the Franken-Lisa, did the article, about how long ago did you publish the article? Right when
Uh
you shared it, probably, right? A couple weeks
yeah.
ago?
It was a week ago, I think. Well,
Or
yeah, maybe a
less than,
week, two
yeah.
weeks. Yeah,
I
it's
know I
recent.
reached right out to you pretty quickly after I read
Yes.
it. So,
Yeah, it
but
was very recent.
have you tweaked anything else on the Lisa since then? Have you found that you needed to do anything else to it, that made something better or fix anything?
So no, not really, but for good reason. So what I explained in my article is at somewhere near the halfway point, I realized I'm making so many concessions that like, okay, I can't aim for perfection anymore, which was nice because it let me just like get things out the gate, get it up, whatever. I could list 20 things that I don't love about this. And not to be not in a negative way, but in a good way, because my intention is really just to do it again. I'll do a different front plate. I'll fix the like Raspberry Pi oddities from the scaling. I'll like properly mount everything inside, and you will know exactly what I'm referencing. I can't remember, but apparently I think you did an interview with him, a kid who is building the Lisa board, the little modern Lisa board.
Alex with the Lisa
Yeah,
FPGA. Yep.
yeah. So I'm tempted to go that route instead of the Pi. Another thing is, I think I said it in my post. Shout out to the Lisa EM guy, and then the other Lisa emulator, which I should know the name of. I'm so sorry that I don't. But both of them are. You can tell they're labors of love, and you can see where kind of that like love may be separated. They are not beautifully polished emulators. They're here it is. Good luck. And I mentioned that to say that the other day, I can share a link with you, and you can put it in the comments or whatever. A fella literally like a week ago posted on Reddit or something, and then shared his source on GitHub for a Lisa OS emulator that's totally browser based. He used Claude, I think, to like vibe code a bunch of it, but it's his
Right.
explanation will do it infinitely more justice than my would, but it's really impressive. Like it's running the actual software. It's
Hmm.
not a poor implementation, but it runs incredibly fast. It's really snappy, snappier than any of the emulators do because they're doing so much like interpreting and back and forth. And it's a super blast to tinker with. Like I said, I'll send you a link to it, and you should share it around. But my intention is to swap out at least the Lisa component, like software wise, with his version. I'll download that source from GitHub and let it run locally and all that because it's much snappier, much faster, much more accommodating than what I'm running on with
And
from Lisa EM.
so I did see that. I think on Lisa List too, one of the forums, and I read
Yeah,
it a little bit, but I didn't read it in detail. But I believe Alex, who made the the insanely impressive hardware reproduction, that the
yeah,
FPGA, but he even commented about how he could see all the things that yeah are flawed and not working or anything, but just how impressive it was.
yeah,
So he had a lot of nice things to say about it. Oh, here's my other comment is, well, two, I guess, is, we're all Apple fans here, Mac fans especially. Steve Jobs, of course, trying to get the Mac out the door, said real artists ship.
uh-huh.
That you can work on something forever to try to get it perfect, and who cares if it never goes out the door, right? No one ever gets their
Right.
hands on it. But even as artists, even if you want to loosely say artists of anything creative you do, if you never get it out you never get it in front of anybody, then who cares how potentially perfect it might be later.
Right.
Sometimes you have to make just, I don't mean be sloppy or lazy or rush, but I had to do that with my film. Is I fell
Yep.
behind and a lot of other things went on. But ultimately, I'm like, I got to finish this, and I did my best, and I tried to be as much attention to detail, but I kept it as simple as possible. Otherwise, and it's not perfect either, but I finished it.
Yeah, and you're right. We're also our own worst critics. So we look at things under a magnifying glass that, the fact that, the fact that the seam on the left side of this is slightly wider than on the right
I
side, like
noticed
nobody
that.
on the
I was
yeah,
shocked when I saw that.
yeah, no, nobody else seems to care. So you're right. It's about just, get it to a place where you're happy with it. You can always iterate on it later, but put it out into the world, see how you still feel about it then, and don't
Got,
obsess.
Look, I'm going to go real off script for a second. You ready? So back in the day, there's this science fiction show called Space 1999.
Huh?
Have you ever seen it?
No,
But check it out. It wasn't great, but it was interesting. And they were original at least because trying not to be like Star Trek. But it was about these. It was about the moon base Alpha. So it's a moon base, and they got these really cool spaceships. And then I think was it an asteroid hit the moon, and it shot it out into space, and and the moon left the Earth orbit, and it's traveling off into space. So all these scientists and the people at Moonbase Alpha, they're stuck on this moon base and it's traveling away from the Earth now. But they had these
huh.
really cool looking spaceships, and they were called Eagles and Eagle transports. And Hasbro, I think it was, or Kenner or somebody came out with this. As a little kid, it was like this big, this awesome play set. And my friend had one. I always wanted one, and they're crazy expensive, to get one eBay or whatever. But I saw this on Amazon recently, so this is what it looks like. I'm trying to make the point. It's like I haven't built it yet, and it's some generic, Lego knockoff, but it
Yeah,
looks pretty good. Does not look exactly like it, but it looks
yeah,
pretty good. And I think it was
yeah.
only like $35. So you know what I mean? It's like it's not going to look exactly right. Like maybe your lease isn't perfect. That's where I was going with it. But as
Right.
soon as
Yeah.
I have the time and I build this thing, I'm going to be really happy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about the. Oh, there we go.
Right.
About
No,
the
you're
focus.
you're spot on. That's
But
what
anyway,
matters. Yeah,
compromise
that's what
can be
matters is
okay.
if you're happy with it, other people will be happy with it, and your excitement will show through. And yeah, no, I'm
Because I
with
just
you.
love the spaceship because it looks very authentic. Like that looks like in the 70s. It's like, yeah, that looks like something NASA would actually do. That looks like
Uh-huh.
the next generation spacecraft.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, but So in your article, obviously one of the most I'm going to say is, you know, the most important thing you did, arguably, or the hardest thing you did was actually 3D print the case.
Yeah.
And you talked about you went through a couple of different 3D printers, and
Yeah.
so correct me if I'm wrong. You finally found this one that was pretty awesome, right? But it was just not quite big enough. You couldn't just 3D print a whole panel, so you had
Yeah.
to do everything in half. And that was cool, right? That worked, obviously, but you had a lot of trial and error on not necessarily just how to put the two halves together, but then how to finish it so it doesn't look bad. You don't see the seam, and then ultimately the color, and and obviously it worked out pretty well. So maybe talk to that some.
Yeah. So the first 3D printer I had that actually mattered was an Ender 3 V3 KE. And they're great printers. If you want to start a printer, get an Ender printer, get a V3 KE at Micro Center, they're awesome, or something better. And that was a fine printer. I printed a bunch of stuff on it, little tinkery things all over the place, but it has a very small bed. That's what I printed like my first little Macintosh thing on. Sorry, I've got my reminders going off here. That's where I printed my first little Macintosh thing and
Oh,
my
by
first little thing.
Ender 3 V3 KE. Okay,
Yes, correct.
in the
And that's like
article.
it's a cheap, yeah, cheap printer in a good way. And eventually I just kind of grew out of it. I realized, man, it's a slower printer. I can't print anything larger than what you can fit kind of in the palms of your hands. So I looked online and I found a deal for the Elegoo. It was a Max 4 and a Plus 3, or maybe it was the other way around or whatever. And I bought one of them and I thought, wow, this is great. And then the next day I found a bundle of two, which was the first day I bought like the Max 4, and the second day I got like the Plus 3 and a Max 4 together. And I was so excited. I got them. Elegoo, if you look up online, it's pretty well respected. So I set them all up and I started off some tiny little you print a benchy is what it's called. It's just like the standardized first thing you print to test your, the quality, whatever. And everything I tried to print besides the bed sheet just came out poorly. And I was like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I need to level the bed. I need to do this. I need to, I need different filament. I need to dry my filament. I need to put some glue on the bed. All these crazy things I've never had to think about before. And you look online, and it's very torn. If you say, oh, max 4 or max 3 plus 4, whatever it was, reviews, people say this is really great if you're patient, or people say this is horrible. I sold this, whatever. But this isn't about it being great or not. People love it. But I, at some point, found a K2 Plus, which is the one I ended up with on Marketplace. It's an Ender printer, so I already know that Ender's rock solid, and this is several years more advanced. It's all enclosed, which is a thing that you want, and it just has a much larger print bed. The one thing I didn't mention was those Elegoo printers, the two larger ones, had a large enough print bed. I forget what it is, 14 inches tall, or maybe they could do 16 inches, and the Lisa's 14 inches at its one panel at its height. This one would do barely under that. So what I ended up having to do, yes, was crudely learn how to use some sort of modeling software and cut almost every single one of the panels in half. I did. I think it's two sides, a top, a bottom, the front, kind of the base underneath, and then the back. And I may be missing something, but each one of those had to be cut in half, which is fine. It's when you're 3D printing, the shorter print time, the more at ease you are, because it's just, if you're on a 16-hour print and something goes wrong at 14-hour, oh my gosh, like this whole thing is ruined. So that cuts it down to, some of those prints were 4 hours, something like that. But yeah, to answer your question, you're then faced with, oh, how do I fuse these two things together? Well, one thing that works in my favor is that PLA is the material, like kind of the go-to 3D printing material. It's the easy one, it's the cheap one, it's the safe one. You can breathe it. You probably shouldn't, but you can. And it's just easy to print with. So PLA, when you apply super glue to it, like traditional Gorilla Glue super glue, it melts it. And so they fuse together in a really rock solid way.
Like plastic models. I mean,
Yes.
essentially right. Way plastic modeling kits. Yeah.
Yes. Which is kind of scary to work with, because you're like, okay, you got one shot. But I did a funny thing actually to really test how hard these could go. Is I took two just kind of scrap pieces I had around, and I glued them together kind of offset like this. And then I waited for them to dry. And I tried as hard as I could to rip them apart. And what I ended up doing was like ripping this entire bottom base plate off. So this whole thing shreds before the glue separates. So I was pretty confident in the idea of gluing them together, but now you've got a seam. So I look online, and I have a bad habit of, I'll read the first two lines of someone's explanation and I'll say, I got it. And so I went to the store, and I got what ended up being kind of the final solution was you get some wood putty filler and acetone. And acetone waters it down, makes it easier to apply. It also helps it to dry really quickly. So I would, at first I used a putty knife, and I had it kind of thick. And so I'd have a big kind of bumpy line down the middle where that seam was. And so I sanded that down. First I hand sanded, realized hand sanding wasn't going to be enough. So I went and bought a rotary sander and sanded it down. And I thought, wow, this is great. This is amazing. And 3D printing, I'm not going to be able to show it on camera, I bet. But off the printer, it has a texture. It has
yeah.
This is what meets the plate, which was often the like top facing, side.
Yeah, this still has it a little bit.
Yes, yeah, and if it's uniform, it's good. But the problem I had was I now had a seam down the middle that I had applied some sort of putty to and sanded. So I had a visible, and physical smooth seam down the middle, and then this kind of nice texture bumpy on the sides. I thought, oh my gosh, I've ruined this. What do I do? It doesn't matter how much you sand it down, because then you're sanding past the bumpiness. So to make my longer story a little shorter, what I ended up discovering was kind of the final real way to do it was to make that wood putty acetone mixture really, really thin, and get a paintbrush and paint the entire thing, every inch of it. And that way, when you sand it down, it fills in all the gaps. It's all uniform, totally flat. And then my article goes into more detail kind of in between how I started and where I ended up, where I would sand it down too much in the middle, and I'd sand all the way back down to the line. So I'd paint it, and I'd see the line again. I'd go, wait a minute, I just did this whole process. And I would be able to do it much quicker now, but it was several days worth of, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening of applying it, sanding it, painting it. One other thing I'll mention that really helped a lot, someone online mentioned this, is automotive filler primer. Is really handy because you can lay it on very thick and it will fill in spots and it's very sandable.
Yeah, I see you mentioned that.
It helped a ton. Yeah.
Now in the pictures, because the 3D model, off the 3D printer is black, like what you're holding there. And then any reason you use black as the starting point? I guess it's like a base color for painting.
No good reason. I've always printed with black, and black ends up being like $1 cheaper, $2 cheaper than other
Okay.
colors. The more so, it crossed my mind. Now I used to buy my filament either Micro Center or Amazon. They also now sell it at Hobby Lobby. And I was at Hobby Lobby the other day when I was working on this project, and they had it. I can't remember what the name of the color was, but it was just beige. It was called sand or something. And my black PLA roll would have been $12, and the sand roll was like $16 or $18. And in hindsight, well, in full hindsight, because I had to make the seams, it wouldn't have worked anyway. But
And you would want to paint it too anyway, right?
well, if I could have gotten away with, if I had a larger print bed, the ideal situation would be me printing these panels in one piece in that sand color and just not having to do anything to them. Snap it together, good. There are 3D print services online that will print on big, enormous beds. And I may pony up what ends up being $100 or something to have them print these files on one single machine, one piece, probably more akin to what you have that you showed me earlier, which is
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, because these are one piece.
Yeah. Well, I meant your
Oh, that, yeah.
Headless.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no seams here.
Yeah, that's a big print. Do you know how big that is? Is that 14 inches?
Oh. Whoops. I was trying to, here's the cover. I'm going to say, yeah, my guess is maybe 14 inches. I don't know. That would be like, that's a foot, maybe 13 inches. I'm trying to guess what a foot is because that looks about right to me as a foot. So maybe 13 and a half, somewhere, maybe not quite, but 13 to 14 inches, I'm guessing.
Interesting. It looks pretty crisp on here. Obviously, I'm looking over it's pixelated, but it looks pretty nice.
There we go. I don't know if you can.
I'm curious what material he prints it out of. If it's PLA.
Oh, you see some of the texture there.
Yep. That would have been that. My guess is that means he printed that side on the bed down.
And this is, this is fairly thick here.
Yep.
Which I guess it's hollow in there. Yeah, I don't know. Other people have to do it for me.
Well, that's great. That's convenient. You get to place an order and then go back to your business and not get covered in sawdust every day and sand dust and.
Oh, how did you? And then you ultimately, and you talk about it. I don't know if I fully, but like you got when you printed this side, you got giant versions of these holes here.
Yeah.
And then what did you do? You went into the simple modeling software and just blocked them up before you printed? No, you did print them with the holes, right? You have one picture with the hole. Oh, yeah, you have the one you're putting together the holes.
Yeah, the first time I printed them with the holes, and it wasn't until, so I, picture that side, the right side panel. I pictured the top left half first, which is fine, and then I printed the bottom right half with the holes. And I'm so impatient that I said, you know what? I'm going to use this as my test piece to figure out how to put them together and sand them. And I assembled it all like that. I don't think I went as far as like paint it, sand it. But yeah, I just kind of crudely Googled how to do it. And there's really no easy solution. There's no like filler tool like in Microsoft Paint, whatever. So I pulled into Creality Print, which is the program that you use to like get your models ready to shoot over to the printer. And all they said online is like, hey, figure out the width of your wall and draw a square that same width. And I actually went a step further. I did that and it was perfectly flush, perfect. And then I used like kind of the inverse of that, where you make that same shape and it creates a hole or a hollow or something. And I was able to place that on a couple areas inside that were clearly meant to like hold a Raspberry Pi and hold like the micro SD mount and things like that, and kind of remove those to speed up print time. And there's a whole world of 3D printing where if you have one overhang, you have to make all these tree supports to hold it up. And that little tree support can add 4 hours to your print. And if it wasn't integral to my project, it made more sense to just get rid of them.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
4 hours. Yeah.
I don't remember where, but and you know what? I wouldn't mind having a black Lisa, Franken-Lisa. That would be pretty cool. We'll have to call it the Darth Lisa then.
That's right. Well, you mentioned this, I think, but I picked up a couple Apple II Pluses yesterday, literally two of them. And I was
Wow.
looking online about, I just started thinking about Apple II Plus. Can I 3D print a case for this? Blah, blah, blah. And there's no good case file for it, but what there is a file for is the top panel. And the reason I mention that is because when you look it up online, what everybody does with it is they pay somebody else to print it in like resin or something,
Hmm.
clear, see through.
Right,
So
right.
I see a lot of those like Macintosh
Yeah.
replacement cases that are like neon green or see through, and those
Yeah,
are
and
really
Mac Effects is they sell those.
yeah, they're so cool, they're so fun.
That's where I got my clear Lisa front panel from. That's
Yeah,
actually on the Lisa. So
I bet that's awesome. Yeah, I would love to, like you said, print one in black or I
Thanks for listening, and please check out some of my other interviews at classiccomputing.com.